The saying, I am woman, hear me roar, it's great and all, but I feel like it needs to be updated with something like, I am woman, and I've had enough of the bullshit. Here's why.
Deemed the celebrity whisperer by Playboy.
This is the best interview of the day.
Thanks for having me.
You hit the nail on the head.
100%.
Period, yeah.
Touch them. They're cracking me up.
Wear them, baby.
This is good.
Taylor Ferber.
Okay, guys, so listen, there is nothing more in this life that I would joyfully be glad never hearing again besides Kamala's cackling. The other is the word authenticity. We've seen it, we've lived it, maybe it's just used and abused, like our news cycle. However, I think today is the day we bring it out of the closet and we talk about it and we have the talk. And here is how the forbidden A word, how this really does apply to what we have seen transpire in this election, in our culture, in the media, etc., etc. And let me ask you something today, class. What says authenticity more than A-list celebrities paid to endorse a presidential nominee? Raise your hand. Okay, I think I heard a cricket in the yard and a janitor saying, right, nobody. So we saw this big floppity flop in the Harris campaign, who, by the way, it's now come to light. Their bank accounts have had a come to Jesus moment. These people spent $1 billion on her campaign and yet are still $20 million in the hole. So safe to say, many people are confident with their choice and who will handle their finances and economic prosperity in the next 4 years. You know what I mean? But we saw a lot of this hemorrhaged money over celebrities and no matter, okay. TMZ is doing the Lord's work, speaking of Jesus, is conspiring with Jesus, and literally went up to Oprah in her car, somewhere on a Malibu hill. It was like, Oprah, we know that you're paid $1 million by the Harris campaign. Then she denied it. However, it is now, I beg to differ, Miss O. Because apparently the campaign paid her this exorbitant amount of money. Okay, her $1 million, Meg the Stallion $5 million, Eminem $1.8 million, and then you had celebrities like Bon Jovi, Katy Perry, Lady Gaga, Christina Aguilera to perform in the swing states leading up to the election, which LOL, because they were all a tsunami, tidal wave, landslide, okay, for Trump. So it shows how effective this strategy was. You even had, which I didn't know this actually until as of late. Again, all the numbers don't lie, bitch. The numbers don't lie, okay? You even had the Harris campaign pay over $500,000. They paid $600,000 to build the Call Her Daddy set in DC, which ultimately didn't even garner, I don't know, 1 million views. On the contrary, you had Trump, who came rolling up for 3 hours on end in the studio, in here, in there, in a Burger King, wherever it is, flipping fries at McDonald's, whatever it was, right? He'd be talking for hours, just rogue off the cuff, meeting people where they were at, be it Theo Von, Joe Rogan, The Flagrant Show, Full Send, Logan Paul, all of these, right? And the memes are true. When you talk about the numbers, you cannot put a price on the memes that talk about, Kamala and her team ruining the day that they did not go for the Joe Rogan podcast. But even that, right, to speak to all of this is also contrived. Sorry, Kamala, apart from your dear little vibrator teleprompter that you have to have attached to your hip 24/7 and go have a real conversation with Joe Rogan. But no, the reason it didn't transpire is because her team, again, wanted to control everything, have to control the minions and the robots that be. and have him on her turf in DC for like 45 minutes. And he's like, roll with or roll out, bitch, basically. And we saw how the people did, in fact, roll out. So we see all these A-listers, like, pay to play on the left, who was a huge celebrity on the right. And you can really see that contrast with like the fake talking head, figurehead essentially of a celebrity that we know is phony baloney, like a fucking lunch lady could tell you, or someone who's huge and really raw in who they are on the right. And I thought about it. I was like, Kid Rock, like he's a little unhinged. But Elon Musk, the world's richest, arguably most brilliant, famous man, and what have you. But Elon Musk, like complete opposite of this sterilization, like whatever the fuck I watch with these A-listers, right? Like he goes to Trump rallies and he is like jumping up and down. Like, your favorite little autistic kid at Six Flags, but that's basically what he is. Like he's like jumping around like the Aspie kid. He is literally, and it was so fun to watch because you're watching, again, one of the world's most powerful men, and he's still awestruck by the moment and just taking it in. Like it is the loop-de-loop roller coaster temple of doom of his time, standing there before him, and he's just like, holy shit, like jumping around with glee in the fast pass lane. And it was so real. And yet what happened? The media went on to mock him like the little Aspie kid that he is. And it's like, y'all don't learn. Like, y'all don't learn what works with the people. Well, maybe this will teach everybody a little something, you guys. Get a load of this. Okay. AOC is back now in the House. But what you may be shocked to learn is that an overwhelming amount of people who voted for her this time also voted for Trump. And like, this was a brain buster like Billy Madison never saw coming. She even took to her fans on Instagram. It was like, guys, like the math ain't mathing, like E equals M, what the fuck? Like, how did you guys vote for me and also vote for Trump? And I've said this for a while that I may not agree with AOC. I may not be like finding AOC under my desk, like while she's shaking and crying over something. We may not share that shared safe space. But she knows how to speak to her base. And I've said, like, they're almost two sides of the same coin. She's authentic and she's her, and she is a great communicator. Again, is she the most genius person in the room? No. Is she an Elon little protege? No. But she is her. And that's what people really said, is that you guys, like, what we see is what we get, and we feel like we know who you are. So how's that for a plot twist of our time? You know what? Like, who would have thought that AOC and Trump would both be seen? Like, couldn't be more opposite. Trump and all of his like egomaniac billionaire, like, kind of brash, like in your face and not give a fuck. And AOC's like quivering in her boots probably half the time and like just crying about something. I don't know, like her shoelaces came untied that day. But that they both are in their own way kind of no bullshit and are for like working class people and the middle class feel like they are seen, like feel like they get them. So, and they both sort of like fight up against the system in their own, some dysfunctional and some coherent ways. And so riddle me that. Okay. How's that for a Mary Poppins supercalifragilistic moment today? And so my big takeaway with this is that, again, Trump had the biggest comeback in American political history. I'm not going to go down the laundry list of all the shit against him, but basically, like, left LA, left DC, disgraced, lost, comes back with people in droves of literally every voter group, okay, that you could name. Like, unborn fetuses, even too soon. I don't know if it's too soon. We're going to get to that. But it shows you that what a stark difference that has versus somebody like a Kamala Harris that has no authenticity, that was completely told what to do, that was fake. And truth be told, we still don't know the bitch. I'm like, are you in there? Lights on, anybody home? Like, knock, knock. Like, we still don't really know. It shows you like that people do not like being spoon-fed what to think, what to do, what to be told. Like the teleprompter queen herself just didn't cut it. And I even saw this for myself, right? When I was on the red carpet, even with my site stripping down celebs. before there was talk to me, before there was cancel me baby, before there was talk to me, Taylor was stripping down celebs. And my, endeavor to really break through that fake glossy facade. Because as we know, celebrities are they're completely different people in real life, and however they may be, human, or, they fart too, they're just like us, maybe not, I don't know, but versus who they are on the stage. And so you look at the two, I don't even know if it's like strategies, but you look at the wildly different approaches here, and it's actually just like perfectly on brand and par for the course for what the Harris campaign did, because it's all just like glossy, not glossy, and fake and contrived, which is celebrities in Hollywood epitomize. Like, do you think we're going to have like a heartfelt moment and feel any sort of authenticity or connection or resonate with a celebrity looking like a deer in headlights to reading off a teleprompter or card? BB off a fucking iPhone in this case, like, versus Elon doing hopscotch jump rope over the thought at speaking at the podium at a Trump campaign. I mean, I'm just at a Trump rally. Like, I'm just saying. And an interesting cap on all of this is a really entertaining MSNBC piece that I, dug up out of the woodwork. Okay. It was at the time of Trump going on Joe Rogan, which like literally broke the internet. It had like 26 million views in an hour. And like, it was, I don't know, it was like right that same night that Beyonce spoke at a Harris rally. And the whole article was like, basically how monumental and huge and historic and important and how much it was going to motivate and mobilize voters, Beyonce speaking, and basically like no one cares about Trump and Joe Rogan. And this just goes to show you how fucking fake they are, because it literally like within an hour, I think Beyonce speaking for Kamala Harris got like 250,000 views. Okay. Which is really, when you stack it up against the 26 million views that Joe Rogan got in 24 hours with Trump on his show, it's just like, talk about the math ain't mathing. But like, maybe that should be another theme of this episode, is like, the numbers don't lie. Unlike most of these fake
Women lie, numbers don't.
So this really got me thinking. I was like, imagine if the media were somewhat, even like a morsel honest with themselves and with us. And we've grappled with this for a long time. This is nothing new, but like, how much do they really believe this shit? And how much are they just like peddling and keep on going, double, tripling down, because like they have literally lost their brains to the system at this point, and there's nothing else inside, besides like the powers that be at ABC News and MSNBC, and dare I say CN fucking N. But like, this is Westworld. Okay, this is Westworld. They are the robots. We are the humans about to go crazy on their ass. That's right. People got to let out some steam. You can't be controlling us, bro. You can only push us so far. So with that said, a really great example of this is what the media and the left did in pushing really hard the issue of abortion and women's reproductive rights and bodily autonomy onto us leading up to the election. Not only did they push it, but they pushed it as, this is the single most important thing you are voting on. You have to believe this. You have to believe that. And day one, you will literally be donning a maroon drape and be Elizabeth Moth's real life co-star in The Handmaid's Tale. Give up your Range Rovers. Give up your pedicures. Give up your days at the Beverly Hills Hotel. It's over, right? But they drilled this out. They drilled it home, not only that it was the most important, but that you had to believe this, right? And I'm not going to get into the weeds right now of the actual policy and when Trump did and didn't say, because we all know he said, I would never support a federal ban. In fact, I would veto it, right? Which was a lie pushed time and time again. But it struck me at the time, because I saw how brainwashed prominent women were, celebrities, People like Call Her Daddy, podcasters, influencers. And I saw post after post after post that was like parroted this mere thing, which is I'm voting for, reproductive rights and my bodily autonomy and all this. Meanwhile though, and this is something to note, right? That women who voted for Kamala Harris actually went down from Joe Biden in 2020 and went up from Trump in 2020, which goes to show, we're going to dive into this a little bit here, but why women and people merely weren't buying it. Now, let me also say that how I ride. My team. Like, I am captain of the varsity team of common sense. Personally, I'm a pro-choice girl. I've always said this, within limits, right? Do I think up to 9 months, unless it's, life of the mothers, that's like, I don't think that that's appropriate. No, I'm in common sense range, which actually half of the country is and agrees to, right? So I would hope that now that it's kicked down to the states, that most states do put in the protections and the systems and the rights in place for reproductive rights. But mind you, while it's just disingenuous and naive this was another thing that was pushed, right? Like, men want to control our bodies and this, like it's naive to ignore the fact that half of the women in this country are pro-life. Do you believe that life starts at, who are we to play God? And life starts at the little baby fetus. And I'm not going to get down that path today. That's a whole, I've had these conversations in real life. I'm happy to do a show on that. It would be fun to do a conversation debate style with somebody on that. I'm sure I can find people aplenty here in the Bible Belt. But it's important to note that aside, right? It's important to note that most women do have self-interest in this. They do want be it IVF or abortion, whatever. They do want some safety and reproductive rights in place, right? And there are the realities of things going on in certain states. However, what was blaring, blinded by the light, wrapped up like a douche, literally, was the fact that there were things more important to women than this. There were things that were more important to them, like the economy, their gas, their livelihoods, their safety, their businesses, their groceries, their DoorDash, their this, their that, you know what I mean? That were just higher on the totem pole for them. It's disingenuous to say that, women are just self-hating and under the thumb and under the hands of these men, or handmaids in this case. That's not real. But what is real is to face the music and face the facts that, yes, most women do have a self-interest in this, but babe, like, there are some things that were just more important to us. And the people sure did speak. And so when you think about, like, going off of this, right, when you think about powerful women and women's voices and strong women, what have you now? Yet another narrative debunked. But, we saw this again leading up to the race, like even Mark Cuban's thing of Trump has never once surrounded himself by a strong and intelligent woman. Well, what happens milliseconds after Trump is elected? Susie Wiles, his campaign manager, who, by the way, was the only person who was able to control and discipline Trump on the campaign trail, and he let her too. And that was obviously very fruitful and a smash success. Okay. Unlike, sadly, Katy Perry reeling from the woman's world feminist flop of our era. But he immediately appoints her chief of staff, which is the single most important role in the administration under the White House. And it has never been done before by any administration. This is the first, it's a historic move. This is the first woman chief of staff. And it cracks me up because, again, if this were on the other side, we would have tattoos of it under our eyelids, on our foreheads, at every traffic stop this side of the Mississippi. Like, it's all we would hear about, right? And even like I pulled up this cracked me up. I pulled up a Marie Claire article, and which who like gives a flying fuck about Marie Claire, but this just goes to show it's so indicative because they did a post about it. And I was like, oh, this should be fresh. This should be interesting. And they do a whole post about how Trump was convicted of this and that and that and the other thing. And this is at the very end, I literally needed fucking binoculars. It was like, oh, and Susie Wiles is the first female to ever be appointed chief of staff. It's like, all right. And so again, this is why like no one is buying the media's bullshit. First of all, Trump doesn't. Do you think this guy gives a flying fuck? Like, we know, short from literally like seeing him in his underwear, we know it all. It's all been out there. He does not care. He does not care about appeasing the masses. First of all, do you think that he would pick somebody as like a diversity quota pity hire? I think not. Secondly, to Mark Cuban, to the media, to all these people, is this the action of a misogynist? Think about that. Hiring the single most powerful, important person in the White House, in your administration, a true woman-loathing, contempt, hateful guy, think twice, bitch. It's not going to happen. And this is why people didn't believe the media's nonsense, that he was some sexist misogynist. And also, how about all of these outraged feminists and people redirect their rage to a true loser like Andrew Tate, who, by the way, on election night literally tweeted that women shouldn't be allowed to vote. So I would maybe take a second, reevaluate, because this whole culture's in desperate need of some regrouping, as I said in my last episode, of who we should take our anger out and what constitutes a misogynist and what doesn't. Okay. Another great example of this, right, of how we were drilled something in our head over and over and over and people weren't just buying it, was the trans issue. Not only how important it was, particularly biological men, people born biologically as a male competing in women's sports. Not only how important it was, but what to think about it. We were told over and over and over that we were discriminatory, that you're transphobic, that you're a bigot, all these things merely for having the common sense to go, even if you're literally Caitlyn Jenner, I know I've talked about her a lot, but the most iconic Olympic athlete in U.S. history and trans person, and having the common sense to go, trans people absolutely deserve integrity and respect and rights and acknowledgement. But what's fair is fair. Should a person born biologically as a male compete against women where they're just going to clobber them physically and arguably emotionally and mentally? It doesn't make sense. But no, we were all told we were crazy. And I would even argue, like, this is something that's been drilled in, right? I wouldn't even argue it. This is actually in a piece I saw in the Free Press. So if you want to cite me, bitch. I have nothing to hide, okay? But that the trans, even though these were both relatively low on the totem pole, obviously, for what mobilized voters, but that women being protected in sports and the trans issue actually did mobilize women even more than the abortion issue in this race. So a great example of this going on right now, actually, is the co-captain of San Jose State volleyball team, who's actually in a lawsuit against the NCAA, get this, about a trans woman player who's on her team. And what happened, even the assistant head coach spoke up and supported the co-captain and said this just isn't fair. And what happened? But bye-bye birdie, she was suspended. And the reason that this is so significant is because, like, many of these issues, say the co-captain, say these other players, like, it is in their best interest to have somebody who is going to drill in 80-mile-per-hour spikes, which is what they guesstimated, and annihilate their opponents. But she said she stood up for what she believed was fair, what was the right thing to do. And the crazy sidebar about this as well is the fact that she talked about how many of her teammates were scared to come out because you can't say anything and you have to just oblige and you have to act like it's all okay or you'll be labeled all these things. And I'm like, how rich? Like, again, which is it? Like, I almost fell off my seat. It's like, right, like women being so afraid to speak up on behalf of themselves, their rights, their livelihoods, their passions. Maybe it's the Handmaid's Tale after all. Weird, but from the other side, right? And the orthodoxy. But I would argue, like, women like this, right? Not only are they self-interested, but you can't say that they're all women-hating or transphobic or insane, down to what people merely aren't and aren't buying, no matter how much you push up on it. Unlike a Juvenile song or a Ja Rule song that you got down to at your 6th grade dance, like, unlike that, like, we can only get pushed up against on this stuff so much. And so what you're seeing now, okay, and just for the firework 4th of July grand finale, is now because, like, the left are playing the blame game, pulling a Mean Girls, like, clawing at each other, blaming each other, and throwing each other under the bus or short bus for their, horrible failure and loss. But this just shows you how we weren't buying not only them, but the media, okay? You are seeing even Democratic Congress people. You're seeing pundits. You're seeing people like Fareed Zakaria on CNN now come out and say how far left and radical this ideology is. You literally have Congress people saying, you know what? Like, it is too extreme. The far left has co-opted and cannibalized the left. And you know what? As a father of girls, I don't feel comfortable or safe with my girls playing against a biologically born male. And even like Fareed said things like the fringe of like defund the police and the Latinx and the identity politics of the trans and all this. Yeah, maybe it's a little too much. And I'm like, well, gee, we've only been saying it and you guys called us crazy for years. Like, just put us in an insane asylum in a straitjacket right now. But oh, wait, plot twist, fashion police, that's actually yours to wear. But I really thought about it. It's like, oh, is it just convenient now for them to let this all out of the closet now that they lost? Or is it the fact that they always knew this stuff was nutty and they didn't believe it all along? Maybe they never even did. But they played along with it for the sake of playing along with it. And this is the point of this episode, is that in the end, you'll lose, babe. So I'm looking at the big picture now. And of course, you still have the people clinging on for dear life. Like they are on Mount Everest holding on by a pinky. I'm talking about the Sunny Hostins, the Joy Behards, the Joy Reids, just can't get past that. The American people, they spoke their truth, and I guess that's their truth. And, what is wrong with this country? And they're just misguided, and it has to be blamed on, we're just idiots, and they just know better than we mere mortals. They're so much smarter than we are. We're just uneducated and ignorant, It's all it boils down to. And so you see that nonsense jibber jabber going on. However, I'm hopeful that with all of this, what all of it shows me is I'm more and more hopeful that the majority of us are going to be drawn to and get to a place that is more real. And truth be told, that's why I was so excited and felt so proud and patriotic with the results, because in terms of especially the censorship side, right, I have been screaming about this from the rooftops for years. So I felt so like in solidarity with so many people being like, oh my God, thank God. Like, okay, we're all in this together. We've all have had enough. And so it gives me hope that maybe, there will be less knee-jerk, racist, transphobic, sexist, misogynist, xenophobic thrown around all the time. And maybe, just maybe, like some other things I know, that being true to you will always come out on top.